Welcome,
Hey, hey.
man of the hour. We got into stablecoins at Stripe right at the right time. Yeah, do you want to just say why did you decide to sell Bridge to Stripe in the first place?
I'll answer that, but first, 2 weeks ago, Jackie and I were having a similar conversation about debanking, and just like for the record, we like very strongly feel the opposite way as her.
Good.
Um,
We can get into that. Okay.
so why did we decide to sell to Stripe? I think two main reasons. One, I spent a good amount of time with Patrick and the rest of the Stripe team, and we shared a very similar belief around and long-term optimism around the impact that stablecoins could have. And then two, it was like pretty clear to me that together we could sort of push this space further and achieve a whole lot more together. And I think that's like, very quickly and very materially playing out where I don't know if any of y'all attended sessions last week or 2 weeks ago, but there was like an immense amount of like, products that were announced and
What are the
shipped.
key? Just the.
Yeah, so there was the financial accounts product that was shipped. There's a lot more that Stripe is doing for stablecoin pay-ins and stablecoin payouts, and then together, Bridge has now announced this big partnership with Ramp and with Visa and with Stripe, where we're going to be issuing global cards on top of stablecoins, which is a big improvement for those of you who have spent a lot of time in the financial services space. One of the things that we're most excited about with stablecoins is that they're this global financial building block. Before, everything was very localized. You had like U.S. infrastructure in the U.S. and European in Europe and so on, and it took forever to build a global program. And with this, we're able to ship one card, one program to serve, for instance, Ramp customers in dozens of different countries.
What I'm about to say is a long way away. You need much more consumer adoption. But do you see the long-term goal of stablecoins to disrupt Visa and the credit card payments rails, or how do you see stablecoins interacting? I mean, isn't the goal to escape sort of high fee structure rails?
I think maybe in some ways, but probably not directly. I mean, maybe taking a step back, one of the reasons why we started Bridge was we thought in fintech that over the last multiple decades, cards were in AI we're talking about like this big new platform shift, and folks are talking about before that was mobile and it was cloud and so on, but in fintech or in financial services, the last really big platform shift was a card, and most of the returns in fintech have accrued to card companies. You had Stripe and Adyen and Square and Revolut started as a card company, and Nubank and Brex and Ramp and so on. So much of it was built on the back of this new payment method that enabled this new means of spending money. And our view was that stablecoins were going to be the next major new payment platform. And so it might steal share from those that preceded it, just like cards stole some from the ones that preceded it. But more, it's going to enable a bunch of new payment opportunities and new means of moving money. And we see that today, where the core things that are really working and really growing are one, facilitating cross-border transactions and enabling folks to build global financial experiences, both of which were just massively underserved in the market. It's creating, massively expanding the pie versus cannibalizing other pieces of it.
Right. I mean, I feel like with stablecoins, there's this obvious benefit of the sort of international money movement that it's like, okay, we get that.
Yeah.
I think some of the excitement and the sort of more crypto-y part of it are the sort of automating things and building it into businesses. What are you most excited about there, and where do you see companies really like innovating with stablecoins?
I mean, the areas that are, well, I'll tell you sort of like on the arc of like what is working today and then what might be working in the future. So what is working today is, we have folks who are the cross-border payment bit is like clearly working. Moving money between two different countries is like, slow and time-consuming and cumbersome, and the existing products are super expensive, and so on. And so that's working really well. And we support SpaceX, who's selling Starlink all over the world, and moving money back to the U.S. and Scale.ai, who's paying out people who are data labeling all over the world, and even like U.S. government dispersing aid payments into different countries. And then this like global building block where you want to build a fintech, but and you want to use one core financial stack that you can that can serve consumers in the U.S. or Mexico or Argentina and so on. And that's enabling people to build financial experiences in totally new markets because the building blocks did not exist, or to expand globally at a cost that is materially lower than could exist otherwise. And you see, the latter with like the ramps of the world being able to go global, and the first with like Cleva and Dollar apps serving folks in their markets. What will exist, or what we think can happen in the future with sort of the programmability of the dollars themselves. There's basically, I would say there's like a few. First off, I would say none of these areas have product market fit.
Right.
So those are the areas that have product
Sure.
market fit. Everything else is like you squint your eyes and you're like, okay, I hope this works,
Right.
or maybe this will work. But like a very obvious one is that you think about financial services today. The data associated with a payment and the payment itself are totally separate. And so like the back office of something like a health insurer is like massive, because you're reconciling the payments with the invoices to totally separate sources of information that requires all this work to tie it together and to get to flow into your accounting systems. And stablecoins actually enable you to send data with a payment itself, which is over time will be something that people take advantage of. Or another thing I was talking to someone else about was when you're roaming in different countries. So let's say like someone here travels to Europe. You go to Europe and you're using some other cellular plan. What ends up happening is your U.S. carrier basically accrues this balance with the carrier in Europe, and then every day does some sort of net, or every week does some sort of net settlement. And these like roaming plans there's like hundreds of people that are like, basically facilitating the net balances between all of these roaming plans. And in theory, all of those payments can basically be streamed in real time as consumers in each of these countries are traveling to Europe, or traveling to the US, or traveling to Mexico, and so on.
Do you, I listen to you. I come away bullish on stablecoins. Should I go buy crypto generally? Like, do you think it's a positive sign if there's a lot of stablecoin activities that crypto is doing well and speculation on cryptocurrencies is going to continue?
So I think the two are sort of beginning to diverge and go down separate paths. And so I don't necessarily believe that stablecoin activity should make you bullish on crypto. That being said, you should still go buy more crypto for sure. But maybe unrelated to those two. And what I hope happens, and you see this with what's happening now in Congress, is that there's legislation specifically for stablecoins and support, and beginning to be broad consensus for stablecoins, with a lot of remaining questions around what happens with meme coins or crypto trading or the market structure bills or whatever else.
Why are stablecoins good business for Stripe? If the goal is to sort of like lower the costs, decentralize something, I would think, if I'm a trust-based business, that's bad for me. Why are stablecoins good for Stripe? Where's the money to be made?
Well, right now, the majority of the money is made in two ways. So the first is the stablecoin issuers. They're kind of the Circles and the USDTs. I mean, Tether is like the best financial services business created in the last since Visa, basically, and its sort of profitability eclipses even that of Visa. It's pretty amazing. So the stablecoin issuers and stablecoin issuance will be a very meaningful business, and there will likely be more of them tomorrow than there are today.
You think you'll be an issuer?
We are. Yeah.
You are a full issuer.
We've issued maybe 15, 20 different stablecoins. And we believe that everyone is going to want their own stablecoin for security reasons, and to access the yield, the underlying yields tied to it, and so on. And then the other thing is the business that we started in which is decomplexifying this stablecoin space. Is like a very simple way you can think about our business is that anybody can build using a dollar type that they feel comfortable with, whether that's like a US dollar or a stablecoin or whatever else, and then we make it compatible with all the other forms of a dollar that exist so that you can take full advantage of everything out there, but without dealing with all that complexity. And you could sort of think about it similar to Stripe and enabling you to deal with all the different payment methods that exist in the world, but with one simple integration. And that's valuable to people and so those are probably the two most proven business models that exist today.
Never one to shy away from disagreement. Explain your disagreement on the debanking issue.
Oh, so I mean, our journey, for those who maybe don't know, we started the company 3 years ago. Terra Luna happened, and then FTX happened, and then Silvergate happened, and then Signature happened, and then the week we rebuilt a bunch of times. Then the week that we finally launched was when SVB happened, and so it was quite a journey. And in that, we probably went through like 5 different banks. And we had everything from people just ghosting us to people telling us that there was some nebulous bucket of high risk things, and that bucket was totally full. And so we were off to the side.
But I took Jackie to be almost saying it's not like the government was like mandating it. It was like you're just a headache of a client, and we don't want to deal with it.
I don't know what the government was saying.
Right.
I just know our experience of trying to work with banks
not getting them
in any capacity was like pretty challenging.
Is there a bank you came away from that whole experience feeling good about?
Oh yeah, Lead Bank. I mean, Lead Bank is a great partner for us.
I didn't set that up. I knew they were partners, but I didn't know what he would say. This is not marketing for them.
Yeah. They're a great partner. Highly recommend.
Where the actual legislation in Washington, the Genius Act, any sort of strong takes, or do you think it's going to change much? I mean, you already built this business. You're already doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's going to materially change the market, and we're already seeing, I was just talking to Jackie earlier today. We're just seeing a material change just this week in the folks who are coming to us and interested in issuing stablecoins or thinking about participating in some way, shape, or form or building with stablecoins because they now see that there's going to be regulatory clarity. And like one of the big things that's holding back, the stablecoin space is growing and it's relatively big today, but the thing that holds it back from going from 1 or 5% of the market to 50 or 75% of the market is legislative clarity. And to give like a quick example, I was talking to one of the largest retailers in the world. They're super interested in using stablecoins. One of their use cases is very basic. They have entities in a bunch of different countries, one in the US, and one in Brazil. And in order to move money from the US to Brazil, they actually send that money from the US to Ireland, Ireland to Singapore, Singapore to Brazil.
Wow.
And that's the way the money has to move for tax reasons and whatever else. And that actually takes multiple days to a week to move the money from one entity to the other. It was stablecoins. You literally set up 4 wallets, hit a button, and it goes there in less than 5 minutes.
Right.
Very, very simple. The reason why they aren't doing it is because they don't know how it's going to be treated from an accounting perspective. What will happen in the event of a bankruptcy for the stablecoin issuers? How is this going to be treated in the Singaporean entity and so on? And it just creates these questions. But as soon as those are clarified, the decision of how to manage their treasury becomes very simple.
Do you worry that we're getting rid of friction at a time when we want friction more, right? If the vector of attack with AI is like, the system could suddenly figure out some exploit and move a lot of money, that like it'd be nice to slow things down while we have this technology that we're really trying to understand. Like, I know you're in the business of making it easy to move money, but what is your thought about like new attack vectors and the risk there?
I mean, I guess I don't have like a great answer on this. I would say that I'm not that worried about it. I think that the way the financial services space has evolved over time is that you have basically a core primitive that is built, whether it's like an ACH rail or a card rail or what have you. And then over time, people build all this tooling on top of it to sort of make it work in a ton of different use cases. And the clearest manifestation of this is like ACH and like the decades of infrastructure that's been built on top of it to make ACH not seem like it's completely insane. And I think the same thing will exist with stablecoins. And right now, everyone is like engaging with stablecoins at like bare metal, you know. And
Right.
over time, we'll build all these services on top that will help protect consumers and help mitigate fraud. And maybe you'll even build some of these safety measures into the stablecoin itself, which is kind of cool. So if the stablecoin is, you know, stolen, fraudulent, it can be remotely burned, and so on.
Are you working on something like that?
Yeah. We even a lot of the stablecoin issuers in the event of like, you know, money goes into a known wallet tied to a terrorist or what have you, you can burn the funds.
With like Stripe fundamentally being the adjudicator, or like how much do you think there will still be a centralized aspect where it's like we can claw the money back, we're the trusted sort of
I think
authority
for
here?
all the stablecoin issue, well, not all of them. I think that today the big, really profitable stablecoin issuers are all centralized and have that authority.
Right.
PayPal has that authority. Circle has that authority. Tether even has that authority. But there are decentralized stablecoins like DAI and others. But you know, those come with not actually being backed by dollars.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, you have a large acquisition in a category and everybody else says, oh, I should do that too. Certainly it generates a lot of excitement. I mean, you sort of gave part of the answer to this, what they could build, you know, build sort of the mini layers on top, but could you get a little more specific? Like what are some of the areas where you think people should be building that you're not?
I mean, I think that these like, you know, the first two areas of the stablecoin space that I mentioned, these like building in the cross-border payment space and building with these global financial building blocks, we're starting to see companies achieve scale, but it's still very much day one. Like there are, I mean, just as like a very obvious example, there's like really great fintechs and financial services that exist in the US or exist in Europe. That is not the case in large swaths of the world. And the reason why that doesn't exist is because they didn't have the building blocks, they didn't have the infrastructure to be able to go and serve those markets. And so we're starting to see, you know, folks who are taking those world-class services that existed in Europe and bring them into Nigeria or bring them into the Philippines or bring them into Argentina. And the same thing in the cross-border side.
I mean, right now the model is like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like I have a use case, I want to move money. I guess I'll set up a wallet here and a wallet there and make sure.
Yeah.
Like, do you think this space really thrives when I already just have the wallet? And it's like, oh, I already had the wallet for that one thing, and therefore I'm going to use it. And if that's the case, like, what's really going to sort of cause the consumer adoption of wallets so people are ready to use the coins?
Ultimately, I think stablecoins will just recede into the background and become, you know, you'll just be using some core, you know, fintech or financial service, and you won't even know that
So the consumer doesn't need to care.
They're not going to know, and the underpinning of that will be a wallet. I don't think you bring 1 billion people in by 1 billion people going and opening up a wallet and like that being like the thing. It's going to be through the existing, you know, every bank will have a wallet under the hood, you know, and every fintech will have a wallet under the hood, and your Amazon account, your X account, and like, you know, all of these things will just have a wallet. And you'll just be accruing balances, and maybe you pay it out into your bank account in local currency, or maybe you don't. What
is most changed about you or Bridge post Stripe? Either, you know, something you learned, or how you're running the business, or how's the world look differently to you now that you're inside Stripe?
I mean, the biggest thing that has changed is that we have like very you know, tangibly felt the shift along the adoption curve. We were like, before Stripe, it was like we were sort of at the tip of the spear working with all these like, you know, startups from around the world who had already decided that stablecoins were the future and they were going to build on top of stablecoins, and they were coming to us and they
You're dealing with the true believers.
Yes.
Now you're sort of representing the new.
And now everyone's like, oh, you know, Stripe did this thing, so, and Stripe's pretty smart, so like there must be something interesting here, but I don't really know what. So let me go and talk to them and figure it out. And so you know, we're like shifting in terms of people's sort of like, existing or their predisposition to believe in stablecoins, and then as a result, like how they want to engage with stablecoins, like how much they want those to show up for their users, what they need out of our APIs, and so on.
Well, Zach, thank you so much for being on the Vanguard and for coming to speak with us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.